Good afternoon. My name is Bruce McGregor. I'm the Farm Program Coordinator at the Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Village. This afternoon we're going to talk to you a little bit about harness and how harness works and how harness fits on a horse. So, the first thing you do in the morning after you caught your horses and they had a little what to eat, you'd have to groom them up. And you do that with two tools mainly, a curry comb and a brush. The curry comb is used to take the rough burrs and mud and whatever else might have accumulated in their hair since the last time you used them, yesterday. And the brush is for taking out the dust and everything else so they shine up. And you don't want anything under where the harness fits, as you're going to be using this horse for a long time, 7 or 8 hours. And it's our job to make the horse as comfortable as we possibly can. So seeing how Deuce has been brushed a couple of times already today, we'll start with the harnessing. So this is the collar. It's what the horse actually pushes against in order to pull the load. This piece is called a sweat pad. The sweat pad is used to absorb the sweat from the horse's body so it doesn't rub on this leather face. 100 years ago, all the collars had cloth faces, so sweat pads weren't quite as common as they are today. This sweat pad is filled with deer hair, which is very, very absorbent. To get the right size sweat pad, fit the collar on the horse, and if it's 25 inches, you buy a 27-inch sweat pad. The sweat pad is always 2 inches longer than the collar is. The collar goes on over the horse's head. Put your head in here, Deuce. There's a couple different kinds of collars you can buy. These are called adjustable. They have 3 adjustments here. This one goes 25, 24, 23. Then there's a field collar that you just buy it and it does up here. So it's nice if you can just fit your hand comfortably, the flat of your hand, between the bottom of the collar and the horse's windpipe. Once you got his collar on, your harness is hanging on a pin in a barn probably, so you pick it up from the bottom. Putting it on your shoulder as high up as you can. Then you pick it up by the hames. The hames are these steel parts right here, one on each side. In some cases they're wooden. In our time period, many of them were made out of wood. Now, I actually have to throw this harness on the horse. So, throwing the hames over, you feed the rest of it off your shoulder onto the horse's back. The hames is what you pull, is what the horse pulls on. They fit in a groove around the bottom of the inside of the collar. The hames are also sized. Once you get the collar fit, then you have to get the right sized hames. There's a strap at the top and a strap at the bottom, each with 6 adjustments. You want this to be just right. You don't want to pull it so it squeezes the collar in on his shoulders. So there's 6 adjustments here, 6 here, and 3 here. Altogether, I think it's 36 or 76 different adjustments to fit those hames. Once that's on, the next thing you hook up is the breast strap. So called because it goes around his breast. Right, so this horse is a left-hand horse in a team. The adjustment on the breast strap is at the outside, so if need be, you can adjust without going between the horses. It hangs on these rings on the bottom of the hames. This hook hooks to the neck yoke on the front of your wagon so that they can carry the pole and steer. This longer piece is called a martingale. It goes between his front legs. On the other side is the belly band, which I'll bring through now. I always put my belly band through the martingale. Not everybody does that. I don't really think there's a right and a wrong, just preference. The belly band is not like a cinch. It's not done up tight. Its main job is to hold these rings at the right position. Going down the horse, I grab the rest of the harness, pull it over his rear end, stand here till I'll move for just a second, thank you. They have wonderful timing. Stand here and I'll pull on this part, it's called the britchin, till I see the hames move. That way I know the collar's in place. These straps are called up tugs. They hold up the britchin strap. Last thing on this part of the harness is the quarter straps. They're hooked to the britchin right here, and now they're hooked to the martingale. Anything from here down is meant for going backwards or brakes. Anything from here up is what the horse uses to pull something down the road. So, if we're going to hitch to that wagon, you take these chains, they're called heel chains, and you hook them to that evener. When you say go, they go, hopefully. And when you ask them to back up, push the load backwards, they actually push on this strap, which is hooked to this strap, and this is hooked to that front piece on the wagon, right? And then they push backwards with their rear end until this gets tight like that, and then the wagon comes backwards. You always want to make sure that you check this. You pull this till this is tight, and you want some slack in this one. If there's no slack there, it means the horse is backing up on his neck instead of his rear end. And it won't be long till you have a very unhappy horse. Next piece is called the bridle. This metal piece down here is called a bit. The leather part is called a headstall. And when we put them all together, it's called a bridle. This is how communication happens between you and your horse. You always let the horse accept the bit at his own speed. You cup his ear forward, push it into the bridle. There's a space back here in the horse's mouth where there's no teeth. Do up a strap called the throat latch. Throat latch is used so the horse can't rub the bridle off. It's not a nice experience to be driving or sitting on a horse and holding the lines and the bridles down by the horse's feet. So that's how that works. Then your lines hook in here, right? And that's your control right there. With saddle horses, you have lots of ways of communicating, you know. You're sitting on the horse, you can use your upper leg and your lower leg and your rear end and your hands and your voice. With the draft horses, you have your voice and your hands. So they learn all sorts of turn commands. G is turn right, ha is turn left. The most important one, of course, is whoa. So, now that we have the horses harnessed and bridled, the last step before you go driving is to hook your lines up. So I tend to work my way around the horses. I don't do the outside of one and the inside of another. That way I don't forget as much. So we just buckle them to the sides of these holes on the bit. If you go to the bottom hole, you have quite a bit more leverage on a horse that might be a little harder to handle. Then you come to the middle of the horses, whoop, and you have a line here that's actually longer than the outside line. And on this team we've chosen to use double spreaders. These allow the horses to walk a little further apart. They were invented by bundlemen to prevent the lines from falling down over the end of the pole. I like to carry an extra ring to run the line through, so I go through the long one first and then the short one on the other side. So then I cross once more in front, just checking to make sure that I did get all the lines up. Here at the Ukrainian village, we leave our halters on, just because we're with the public all the time. I like to take my lead shanks and tie them around the hame, inside the line. That way they're easily accessible. That's it. Next thing is to take your lines out of your breeching, step over the post and go for a drive. It. Oop. Back now. Oop. Then you have to go to the front of your horses, keeping your lines with you at all times. You take the neck yoke and hook it up to the horse you trust the most first. On this team, it doesn't really matter which horse you would use. This is the neck yoke, the pole, then from the back of the horses, we'll start to hook the traces. So, earlier we talked about the heel chains. We have this adjustment because horses walk at different speeds. So this horse is a tiny bit slower, so I'm going to hook him one link shorter than the other horse. That'll allow him to keep his side of the evener even, making sure he doesn't have to pull more than his share. So that's 4 on this horse. And 3 on this horse. Always being careful to make sure that your traces are straight. If they run crooked, it won't be long before you cut a hole in your horse's leg. And again, he's liable to be unhappy. The easiest way to make your horse step into position is with the trace. Overdeuce. So that's it. These pieces are a single tree. This piece is a double tree. When you put them all together, it's called an evener. We're going to go now, and I'd like to thank you all very much for your interest. Do побачення. Get